Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. We have Raising Arizona, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, Burn After Reading, and Inside Llewyn Davis, all directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. And then finally, we have our newly released film, Drive Away Dolls, directed solely by Ethan Coen. So it is going to be a Coen-filled week, ladies and gentlemen. So stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
How's it going, Tom?
It's going okay for me. How was your Coen week of movies?
I'll tell you what, this was a great week. I was a little bit behind the eight ball on getting some of these done, just with things going on in my life. But these were a breeze to watch. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, one thing we just were commenting on is I didn't realize how short of a movie of directors they were.
Yep.
Like everything you had said, everything is under 2 hours today.
Everything. Yep, absolutely. And that is a secret success of these films for me. But folks, this is our unseen Coen Brothers episode, similar to how we did for the Paul Thomas Anderson episode going way back when. That perpetually is always last December for me. Now that's two Decembers ago. Yeah,
it's crazy.
All these films have not seen before. Of course, the Coen Brothers have many other movies and projects to their name that are very recognizable. But this is about watching, what I haven't before.
Yeah,
so
they really have made a lot.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. It's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
And we commented a few weeks ago how all of a sudden they've kind of separated for the first time practically ever, where Joel did the Macbeth for Apple, and now Ethan is doing Drive Away Dolls, and I thought there was a third one where they were separate on.
I think so too. I can't think of it now, though.
But I think it was something or something coming out. But in a recent interview, I think it was Joel Coen was in an interview, and he was like, "Oh no, we're going to be working again soon." So there's something in the works.
Right. We're not seeing a messy breakup or anything.
No,
like
definitely
that.
not.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding too that Joel was always like the camera bug. He was always the one actually behind the lens mostly.
Yep. And Ethan's always writing.
Yes. And they're always like Ethan is also directing, but he's always uncredited. But he's always known as also a director, and they kind of share that. They always are doing film editing too, and they just go by a different pseudonym.
Oh, really?
Pseudonym? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they always do a different. I forget what the name is, like Jane Roderick or Roderick Jane or something like that.
Wow, I had no idea.
If you ever see that name, that means that it's just both of them.
Interesting. There's a couple different rabbit holes I had this week in research and refining the notes, but I didn't come across that. So that's awesome.
That's good. See, Soderbergh does that too.
Yeah,
he just takes the name of like a woman or something like that.
Yeah. Well, apparently Soderbergh has his personal website is where a lot of these like black and white cuts that he does are put and whatnot. So
it's why I really like Soderbergh, but because when I watch his films, it's always hit or miss. Actually,
yeah.
In actuality,
when you watch the films, it's just like, all right, less style, but I don't know.
But the Coen brothers are awesome. They're really well known. They're always doing all kinds of projects, whether it be big or small. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It seems like they do a lot of smaller stuff, but then they have big talent, or I don't know. They're never like the biggest box office success.
No, I don't think so. And especially looking 2007 onwards. I mean, not even like big hits among their hits as well. So something I was looking at, I tried this week to capture as many eras of their filmmaking as possible.
Yeah, well, you started with you hit the 80s. I mean, I guess the 90s aren't really hit, but you have Oh Brother with 2000. But they
Right.
do so much.
Yeah.
They work pretty quick. Like, their
Right.
turnover is, like, impressive.
And some of that early work is very hokey, very not the greatest. So, when they're just like kind of writing scripts and handing them out.
Yeah.
But folks, I mean, as far as what we love to do on the podcast is spot trademarks of directors and really any kind
Yeah.
of creative artist here. So, I think when it comes to the Coen brothers, their trademark is undoubtedly within their writing, but within that, it's a lot of things. Because I mean, the writing is more of a styling of how their films feel. They love super odd characters, often inserting original ones even when adapting something, and I would say interesting casting choices really come secondhand. They really are a magnet for repeat faces and interesting casting that I don't know if it's behind the scenes they make these friendships or whatnot, or the people are just dying to work with them, but they're also the masters of crime, not sacrificing violence on screen and even often being paired with comedy. I would say the masters of small-time crime, which is a concept we'll return on many times in films this week, and of course kind of going into one of their best, being Fargo. Like we talked about already, most of all, they know how to trim the fat. These films are editing marvels, all under 2 hours, and I can't tell you how, especially, again, being behind the curve a little bit on this week was such a blessing, and also for the enjoyment of these films, because they're wrapping up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's enough of a story. I don't need more, and there wasn't, fat to trim.
You can't say they're not complete. That's for sure. Yeah. They are complete films and complete stories.
Yeah.
It'd be funny to talk about pacing, and one of them coming up. As you know, I watched Raising Arizona and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yep.
Because we watched them together.
Yeah. we had a great breakfast. Also, producer Sean. It was a good time.
So, okay, do you want to start up right away? Or do you
Yeah,
have
let's
any more
go
notes?
to absolutely Raising Arizona.
All right, we're jumping back to 1987. Not their first film, but definitely early career, one of their first biggies.
Yep.
And this had some praise and kind of well known when it came out right away. So 87, it's Raising Arizona with a very young Nick Cage. Vin, let's set it up. And how did you like it?
Well, I really enjoyed this film. I was surprised. I was worried it would be too family oriented, but really fits the wheelhouse, honestly. And folks, this episode might very much be about the Coen brothers directly, but this one is notable for, as you said, Tom, a super early Nick Cage performance at the ripe age of 23.
How old do you think he looks? He could pass for 32 easy.
I know, yeah. It's. I guess it's in his hair. His hair has a, just got out of bed kind of look. But yeah, I don't know, making us feel like old men. 23, Nick Cage. I guess is the time as well that he would come and do cartwheels on talk shows when he came out. That was something that Nick Cage was known for. So
I have to go back and look up some of those.
I think. I'll send you the vids. I would say for Nick Cage, this is not only an early performance, but a standout performance. The very same year, he starred in Moonstruck, an equal feather in his cap for his early career. And long before the woes of his overacting making him infamous, I mean, Christ, this is 1 year later, and we get the delicious garbage that is Vampire's Kiss. And we haven't even gotten to the 90s. Vampire's Kiss is, I believe, the one where he goes, A, B, C, D, and he goes
Yes,
through all
you're
the,
right,
he thinks he's turning into a vampire. So, I mean, that's something else.
So many good clips in that movie.
Oh, yeah. But I really do want to give a lot of praise to Cage on this one. Without a doubt, you can put Racing Arizona in his category of good performances. I have to very much separate that for Nick Cage, whether it's good or bad. And especially with some solid narration work, the main takeaway is I'm surprised we don't see Cage among the many repeat faces working with the Coen brothers over the years, where they are so much. I mean, from Francis McDormand to John Goodman, these are faces.
To Toro,
or
whatever his name is. Yeah.
Yeah, and so many of their films over and over again. So I'm just surprised that Cage, again, as the working man, the working actor, that we don't get that. So, Raising Arizona, though, is about a small-time criminal who marries a small-time cop. Through failed attempts to have a kid, they conspire to become a family by stealing one of the new quintuplets popularized on the local news. Things look to be pulled off smoothly until Nick Cage's criminal past haunts him, and the temptation for action, meaning robbing gas stations and drugstores, invites dangerous personalities to threaten their new family. I would say, unlike a lot of comparisons that I will make throughout this episode, this really does feel like the low-stakes crime the Coen brothers are known for, but also the first draft of what we will see them knocking out of the park with the must-watch Fargo. Only, 10 years later.
Yeah.
This feels like if it was in Arizona, if it was, where am I thinking? Is it Milwaukee, Fargo? I'm trying to think. No. Dakota. What am I saying? North Dakota. It really does feel like these criminals have nothing else but their schemes and their games, and that's what I love about these scripts that they do. There's just something so wonderful about the small but realistic motivations of our backwater characters and the almost understandable circumstances that drive them to crime. I would say the heart in their writing allows them to make our many characters criminals without them being villains. And that's the fine line, and I think a lot of Coen Brothers stuff. And while in many ways Raising Arizona is sweet and a little sappy at times, the stakes aren't sacrifice and credit going to this kind of crime angle. It is really a sweet movie, though. This is by far like the most, if you could label anything a family film of the Coen brothers, it is Raising Arizona.
It is this. It's funny to know, too, with the characters. They are bad and they're criminals.
Right.
They're lovable enough where you can put them in your shoes. They're not outwardly evil.
Right.
They're just very, very small.
Yeah, even the plot of this, like, stealing this baby, it's taken with such, like, they're just trying to start a family, that's what's so great about it.
And I think also the Coen brothers are really good, and it's so shown here. These are such simplistic characters where they don't want you to know anything else.
Right.
They boil these characters down to very simplistic bullet points, essentially. But it's the fact that they're not doing shtick characters or such common characters where they'll just be throwaway.
Yep.
We're getting interesting ones with just like the weirdest little arcs. So simple, but just the uniqueness makes it cutesy. It makes it fun.
Absolutely.
Even when you look like the bad ones,
yeah,
they're bad guys in the film, like a John Goodman as well, where it's just hard not to smile when he's on screen, kind of.
You're right, exactly. And they do so much to, I don't know, infuse heart. I don't know if that's a overused kind of term with it, but the emotional center of this isn't sacrifice, even though these characters are simple. I think one surprise for me is Molly Hunter here, getting some of the biggest laughs out of me. I mean, the scene where she first sees the baby and she goes, "I love him so much." Like it's just gold. And I can't say I'm like a huge Molly Hunter fan. If anything, a little annoying in her Miss Elastic, whatever in The Incredibles. Would you care to elaborate on your vendetta with The Incredibles?
I just don't like it. Did I talked about it further before?
I don't think so.
Okay. Not a fan.
You're right. It's your bone to pick with Pixar.
The way I look at her in this film, she's just, to me, they just got another Frances McDormand. Even though Frances is in this movie.
Yeah.
They look very similar.
Yeah.
And they are acting in this very similar ways.
Absolutely. I almost wasn't successful at kind of unpacking it, but especially with Burn After Reading, I was trying to think of what is Frances McDormand's, like, I don't know, how you describe her acting, and it's almost like I don't know, not a Swiss Army knife, because I feel like that decreases quality, but she's able to fit in just every type of scenario.
She really is. But I got to be honest with you. Would you say that there are actually a lot of commonalities to her Fargo character, to Three Billboards, to Nomadland?
Sure. And I would definitely throw a Burn After Reading in there as well. Yeah. I guess it's kind of just it's assuming the mundane. It's like a mundane character. They're not really anything special, but she's still able to bring a realism to it.
Yeah, and what she does with her vocals and her voice are really good too.
Yeah.
She nails the character. I think she might be my favorite actress.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She's really up there.
Yeah. Cate Blanchett.
No. Frances McDormand is higher than Cate Blanchett.
Sure. Okay. Interesting.
We'll have to explore, but I think she's right up there.
Yeah.
I don't know if we went down the list if you could get much better.
I exactly, and just so many quality performances.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
Macbeth as well. Going a few years
was
back.
she in? Did she play the FBI or the accountant in the multiverse movie with Short Round?
Oh no! Everything Everywhere.
Yes,
that's Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's right.
Yeah.
Also, big Jamie Lee Curtis fan.
No, sure. Yeah. But I guess that fizzled there. There's also a lot of baby jokes with this one, which I don't know. Again, adds to kind of like the sappiness to it. It really made me wonder if Huggies had some skin in the game on this one.
They absolutely did.
Yeah. I think that might have been some early funding for them, but works in a way. Product placement aside, definitely that's a cringe for me. That's something that makes my skin crawl.
Mm-hmm.
Is thematically just ties to the jokes and what's going on in the story. So, a repeat note I had with this one was cinematography, as we get very Sam Raimi style shots, both interesting fixed cameras, mostly for some motorcycle shots, which are cool, and bouncy shaky cams. I mean, right out of Evil Dead. It looks like Evil Dead. It looks like Spider-Man 2. It's that type of shaky cam. It just must have been kind of in their wheelhouse. This became a huge rabbit hole for me, as Barry Sonnenfeld is not only behind the lens on some major projects, but then he graduates to become a director on even bigger projects in the 90s. After this, he does the camera work on the family classic Big with Tom Hanks. And two of my favorites from early podcast episodes, 1989's When Harry Met Sally, and 1990's Misery, both working with Rob Reiner. Then, get this. I mean, I was kind of swooning over this guy. I mean, this guy, I like his career. He starts directing in 1991 and does everything from both the Addams Family movies, all three Men in Blacks, and of course the classic So Bad It's Good 1999's Wild Wild West.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right. So
We got to approach those again. Men in Black 3.
I don't think anyone's asking for that.
Men in Black. Oh, well, Wild Wild West, everyone would love that.
Sure.
And Men in Black 3 is shockingly, from what I remember, like a phenomenal tearjerker, great movie.
I remember when we first watched that in our friend group, and like you were sold on it. Like, this is the best.
Josh Brolin's phenomenal.
Right.
But anyway, the cinematography, strong.
I mean, my mind was blown by this guy's career, and I just like to say, there's some dicey choices in there. I mean, am I really falling on the sword for the Addams Family movies? Yes, but you're all right by me, Barry. You're doing good. He hasn't done anything in a while, though, so I don't know if he's dead or what. I would say production tangent aside, I thought this movie was really, really good. Shown in that $1:30 runtime, it is a tight story that does not need to fill empty spaces, because there's not empty spaces. It's a simple arc that is executed by actors filling their roles perfectly, and watching in modern day acts as a predecessor to so many quirks and qualities we have come to love in the Coen brothers, and a great throwback to watch for that reason, and a great watch in modern day, even just for the film holding up on its own. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give Raising Arizona 1987 a 73.
73, good score, score.
Solid movie.
Yeah, and I thought it was a cute movie. I thought it was good. I watched it once before years and years ago. I was, for some reason, expecting a little bit more, like almost a little bit higher quality. I'm not saying, I was expecting Fargo, but I don't know. I can't outwardly praise this film.
Really?
I think you're coming off a little bit more hot than me.
Okay.
But I really liked the Nick Cage, and I did really like Holly Hunter in it as well. And I mean, what can I say?
Well, you're a bigger Nick Cage fan than me. Did this? You think you would consider this in the good Nick Cage?
I am a big Nick Cage fan. Okay. But the culture of Nick Cage, the Nick Caginess, I am a fan of.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to me, like, you could name more movies probably than me than he's in. I'm not a huge Follow fanboy.
Right.
But everyone loves to love Nick Cage.
Right, I think so.
You know?
I've even come around. Now,
Right, you
so
big time on the podcast.
I really
if there's one thing you can
decided-
say about this podcast, it was violent.
sold me on Cage.
But anyway, he's great in this. I did like Holly Hunter, and early performance from John Goodman. He was, like I said, every single line out of his mouth was just funny, and he was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Always the smart criminal or the smart,
Yep.
ridiculous inmate, essentially. But that's pretty much it. I won't have scores for probably for both of these.
Okay.
Honestly, but definitely a cute movie, especially for learning about Coen brothers. This is a great place to start, I would say, as well.
Absolutely.
So, okay, all right. So that's 87, Raising Arizona with a 73%. So, like I said, we're skipping through the 90s. However, we did do Fargo, and I believe it's episode 11, if anybody wants to go check that out. 'Cause
I mean, a phenomenal movie.
I think that was 97, maybe 98.
No. No. Yeah, you are right. It was 96, I think.
96,
'Cause,
March
yeah,
8th,
it's 9
96,
years later.
right
Yep.
on the website. Yep.
Yep.
So if you want to check that out again, that was episode 11 of the podcast. Early one. It's an early one, folks.
I'm proud of that review, though. I mean, Fargo had such an impact in watching it. I think those upper score ones, I'm always happy to stand by because I mean, Fargo really is a masterpiece of them. You know, and having multiple masterpieces to their names.
And look what it spawned too. I mean, you have the show. You have it has just lasted. Fargo.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we're jumping to the year 2000. This film is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Let's get into it right away. Maybe if you want to set it up, and then we'll kind of have a back and forth on it.
Sure.
Maybe definitely have some more thoughts on this one because it's more of a. Raising Arizona is so simplistic.
Yes, this has a lot going on, even though it is still a short run time.
It's an hour and 47, but Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Why don't you set it up a bit and let's tackle it?
Yeah, well, I think this was a movie I was always curious to check out, as much like 1994's Shawshank Redemption and 1999's Green Mile. I seem to always enjoy these kind of shady prison settings of the 1930s. I like that type of that setting and that topic. Here, the infamous chain gangs of the era give birth to blues stylings that line the film, earning it a Grammy for Album of the Year in 2002. Wow. Believe it or not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I guess even back then, the Grammys were a little bit too stuck up to give it to Outkast. I think Hey Ya was a little bit of a bigger hit than Old Brother Without Thou, no less a soundtrack. Originally, I understood this movie to be much more directly about blues and folk roots in America, even to the point of why I kind of wanted to watch it with you.
Yeah.
Acting as kind of a semi-music biopic for the genre, and while the blues performances in this film are important, the movie really doesn't take that angle and has these elements elevated slightly more than window dressings for the story. Just how these kind of the themes of the chain gang, the themes of the South, a little bit of Southern grotesque as well, are all kind of intermingling there.
Yeah, I was expecting more as well. Again, I saw clips here or there from this years ago. I mean, more than clips. I watched half the movie, a little bit more than half the movie at some point. Yeah, it's not. I think we were both expecting a little bit more as far as the music realm and more blues. I was just expecting more roots stuff, just getting back there.
Maybe even some Blues Brothers like callbacks to like actors or real blues musicians thrown in there.
Yeah, we just don't really get much. I think there's really two featured songs, and then we have the main song, which I forget the name of it, but the Oh Brother We're Out There. Theme essentially.
Constant Sorrow.
That's right. Yep. And that's pretty well known. But other than that, it's even the I don't know, the transition jingles or whatever. It's just was lacking more than it could have. I think it could have punched more if you just would have delved deeper in there. You know?
Absolutely, I agree, and I think it's on top of the praise that this has received soundtrack wise that kind of points everyone in that direction, thinking it's more about music. And it's not.
If this was made 10 years later and like they were just could collaborate with Jack White or something,
sure,
someone who has a really deep knowledge.
Get a strong music director that is in or appreciator of this,
or even
era.
like a Robbie Robertson behind the scenes type of
Sure.
guy. Just call Jack up and be like, all right, what can we put in here to actually make it a little bit more authentic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it didn't feel the most authentic.
Sure,
know?
Absolutely. I would say my only other production notes for this here is my boy, Roger Deakins, is on the lens, on the ones and twos, as he continues his partnership with the Coen brothers across many, many films, almost too many to to list, and deserved of credit with those on those individual films, unpacking them. Honestly, despite my infatuation with his work, I didn't really spot any mind-blowing shots here that I've kind of come to expect. I would say the most notable aspect of the film's look comes in its color grading, which, coming out in the year 2000, falls into heavy digital filter work, which recently we touched on as well in Clooney's Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Digital editing really popping off during this time, and of course everyone just throwing now very tacky looking, almost early Instagram-esque filters where it's just blown out colors. This sporting a very sepia kind of sunset tone to it.
A lot of golds, a lot of gold hueing and yellows.
Yeah.
Definitely went for a more warmer lens. I didn't hate it. I didn't feel like it was, I don't know. I felt like it was so intentional and it had purpose, so I was kind of more okay. It wasn't somebody just trying to do something just to do it.
Sure, and it is
a
throwback to the era, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's old-timey for everyone, so yeah, I get
But
that.
definitely very heavily warm hues, gold hues, yeah.
Absolutely. And this is also, I mean, quick side tangent, an era of film that I'm kind of curious about, maybe late 90s to very early 2000s, before we hit like the hyper gritty mid 2000s with like Dark Knight and whatnot. But I'm kind of interested to call heads or tails on what is the best of these heavy digital films, you know?
Well,
What?
Lord of the Rings.
I guess you're right.
Well,
why do I even...
we
next time I'm just putting the notes, Lord of the Rings.
Exactly.
That's just every note.
anything. I wonder. I look back to the 1999 to early 2000s. Whatever the answer is, it's Lord of the Rings. But you're right. It pops off really in '99 with Star Wars returning.
Sure.
And just the maniac that is George Lucas and digital. Now that looks god awful when you go back to it.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, it's just it's truly terrible.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you have the 3 Star Wars movies, the
Yep.
reboot. You have the 3 Lord of the Rings. You have the Pirates of the Caribbean.
True.
Those are the
true.
3
I always
biggest
forget
when it
about.
comes to digital. I
Yeah.
would say in that kind of time frame.
Sure, absolutely.
But Weta, I think, really takes it. Just that in-house Weta crew. I think just it leaped over Lucas.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And visual design, both like the fidelity of everything.
Yeah.
But before we circle the drain on Lord of the Rings, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is allegedly based off of Homer's Odyssey, which is something that
We both laughed
we
when we
were
heard
cracking up the whole film about. And I would say, much like we've been covering with Shakespeare screenplay flips, it pairs it with a stylized setting. I felt that actually very useful to cover so many kind of literary modern screenplay flips going into this. I say allegedly with Homer because it's really hard to call heads or tails on the inspiration. This is certainly structured as an Odyssey. There are certainly some overt references like the siren scene, but in a lot of ways, it doesn't feel like it was more than a small nod.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever finished the Odyssey, any time in my life. So I can't really call it actual, whether it's truly, 1-to-1 or has more than just a small nod.
Right.
But feel free to write in, folks, if you have some expertise of Greek epics.
And had we been big Odyssey guys, I feel like maybe this film would hit a little bit higher and be better.
Oh,
but
sure.
You gotta
the appreciation.
You gotta be in that group. Just like this is how I feel about. We just covered My Own Private Idaho. I'm really not the biggest William Shakespeare guy.
Sure. Yeah.
Had I known William Shakespeare or what they're taking from William Shakespeare from there, I probably would have enjoyed the film more, and I'd be like, I could see why they went for this stylistically. This is following the epic or whatever. But
Sure.
For this, we weren't seeing it. We really weren't seeing it too much as far as a connection to Homer.
Right. And the reason why I even describe it as heads or tails is I think a slight criticism I had for 10 Things I Hate About You, was that when it was the lines from Shakespeare, it was so blatantly obvious.
Oh, sure.
Here, the blend is much better, but then I can't really tell. So, I don't know. A little bit of give and take.
Yeah, and I was kind of giving long leash because maybe arc of the story as well. There's things there that we're just not the most versed in.
Right. Exactly.
You more than me, for sure.
Yeah. I would say that stylized setting, though, is, or the stylized spin, is around these 3 escapees from the chain gang, traveling on the promise of buried treasure, while a lawless lawman hunts them down repeatedly. My hot take while watching this, which had us both dying laughing, was that this is really the 1930s version of Ed, Edd and Eddy. Yeah. The group is always focusing on short-term gains, often self-sabotage their own success. Out of the trio, George Clooney plays the slick-talking know-it-all, and was probably my least fave. He was just a bit annoying here, and like you commented while we were watching, Tom, might have just been a slight miscast. Any thoughts on who you would want to fill that with?
I don't know. I just feel like George Clooney is going for a certain character, and the way he's talking. I'm trying to think. I've seen that character before in a film, and I can't. It's not popping in the front of my head.
Right.
But it's in there somewhere where it's just like, oh, this was a character already.
Sure.
But someone who could do the lines better. Even in that crew, I feel like Brad Pitt would have almost done a better job.
Oh, sure.
George Clooney. How did you describe him in this? Like a quick-talking, slick...
know-it-all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Eddie.
And it's, right. But also trying this old-timey kind of... He's, doing something with his speech a little bit different as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Some people I feel like are going to watch it like Clooney. We both were like... We could do without the Clooney.
Yeah, there was a gut reaction to it. So, second in line is John Turturro, the hot-tempered, neurotic one, Ed with 2 Ds.
And for all those listening who don't know Ed, Edd and Eddy,
oh, come on!
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that listen. A Cartoon Network show that lasted probably 3 seasons, really.
Oh, but Ed, Edd and Eddy's classic.
It's classic for you and me. For people much younger, much older, I'm not so sure.
Well, it's 3 scheming boys, and guess what? That's Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I would say Turturro's pretty solid in this, even though I was kind of a bit confused as his accent switch up halfway through the film. Really not sure what went on there, but I'm kind of chalking up to maybe me not paying attention.
Or because we didn't finish The Odyssey by Homer.
Right.
But you're right. He does do he changes this raspiness in his voice.
Yeah.
And it's like, what did we miss?
Maybe it was to try to cover up his identity. I don't know. Regardless. And finally, Tim Blake Nelson plays our lovable doofus, Ed with 1 D. Easily my favorite of the movie. I feel like he just steals so many scenes, either by getting the last punchline with his kind of dumb routine, or just having the most charm among 2 other kind of unlikable characters. I feel like he kind of wins by default.
Okay.
And sometimes. My suggested trademark around weird characters, though, is flawlessly shown in, really this entire film, but in the regular collaborator Stephen Root, playing a hysterical and honestly grotesque radio DJ in the South. That's also where this setting does some heavy lifting, and I feel like where this trademark of the Coen brothers, that they love these weird characters, they love interesting cast to those weird characters. The setting is just able to be filled with copious oddball actors and characters that help define the unique feel to everything. I think that was a positive of the film.
A big part of the film. You have John Goodman coming in. He's practically chewing the scenery almost.
Yeah. But even like the bit characters,
yeah, absolutely.
The assistant to the governor and whatnot.
Yeah, everyone is certainly their own over-the-top character.
Yeah.
Like, no doubt.
Yeah.
It's true. That helped the movie move along.
Yeah. I think that's where my main praise goes. That it feels unique, and almost that these interesting cast choices. Again, I can't even imagine what the casting call would be for some of these small bit roles. Like, you got an uncle? I don't know. Is he weird? But that's where I think there was an appreciation in the film of what they were done, and a match to the setting. Where the film doesn't work for me is in kind of like a goofy cornball energy that is the underline to nearly every scene. I think the bite of this story is lost a good deal, which compared to other Coen films, I know they can achieve both. I think this Odyssey structure is also molasses for the pacing of the film. Can't really call any cuts I would make. Again, it's under 2 hours, folks, but it's all in the feel. It's all in how this feels so much longer, and I think it really does boil down to the structure not being aimless. They're obviously going towards the treasure, but we have almost like 4 small restarts in a plot that really never got its gallop going.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same type of scenes. Like I told you when we were watching it, it feels like vignettes almost.
Yeah.
Using the same characters, hitting upon different characters, but they're all small settings. You know what I mean? They're in one location essentially, and they're all roughly the same amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, so it almost feels like you're skipping along. But when it's one after another, with our three main guys, new characters coming in, it just kind of feels like rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Which really made the movie feel way longer than it actually is. Like we said, it's an hour and 47. It feels like it's 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
I would agree.
No joke.
I would definitely agree. If not more.
Because it gets to the point where it's just like, okay, we're in and another one. It just keeps on going, and it gets a little tiresome.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And I feel like it's a shame because for all this start and stop to the pacing, the ending, no spoilers, was kind of a little bit of they just throw it up in the air, and then guess what? Everything is solved. You know, it the solution was in itself, a hand wave, which I've critiqued plenty of movies for, and I feel like here it hits as well. It's a little bit lackluster.
Yeah, I kind of look at it so much, not whether things are solved or not up in the air. I kind of just look at it as a lot of times you want a bang finish, and this was a fizzle.
Yeah. This had no razzle.
And when it right, and when it was a little bit pulling teeth, especially once when you're in the second half of the film, and it's still going and going, it's just like, all right, it's. I don't know. Like, did you waste my time a little bit? Kind of feeling.
Sure. I completely understand that. But so, folks, maybe not the strongest entry for the Coen brothers, but a lot of that comes from how high caliber their other films are. I'd happily put this among the B tier of their movies, and specific parts perfectly shows what they're all about, but maybe not the one you go to really identify that for the first time. This is in that B tier, something that if you're already hooked, you would go into. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? 2000 a 61.
61, yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Like I said, there's no feeling to give it a two shoes or anything, but it was lacking.
Yeah.
You know, and it's even like Raising Arizona where it could hit for some and really not for others. It's hard for me to say anything outwardly great about the film.
Really?
But at the same time, I don't feel like bashing it either.
Yeah, sure. It's the blondness of it.
Right. Because there's good elements, but there's just some that just continue on and on and on. And you know, I didn't love the main three, I'll be honest.
Sure.
I almost think I liked Clooney the best just because I think if he's not on screen, there is no film, essentially.
Oh, sure. The plot's not moving. Then.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel a little bit.
Right.
But anyway, okay, so Oh Brother, Where Art Thou with a 61%. Very good, Vin. So let's jump to 2008. And for anyone who got the newsletter, I messed up because I thought you were going to do Barton Fink in 91, and you didn't do that. You ended up doing Burn After Reading in 2008. And then it was my mistake again. I wanted to stay away from this film because I thought it was Matt Damon heavy.
No.
But it was Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
So I really messed up on that one.
It's a shame because I think you would have really enjoyed this film.
I think so, and we're going to find out. Burn After Reading set it up a little bit, and how'd you like it?
Well, I'm honestly shocked I have not seen this before. 2008 lands it during the prime of me getting into movies. I guess I was a little bit too busy watching The Dark Knight in theaters for the 13th time.
Did you do 13?
Not kidding on that.
Wow.
Yeah, not exactly proud of that either.
By the way,
it's a colossal waste of money.
2008. This is just 1 year after No Country.
Exactly. And you're right in line with where my thoughts are and why I would kind of expect to see this film because their follow up of No Country for Old Men, a must watch. For me, I feel like when looking from a bird's eye at their filmography, this kind of does mark a little bit of a decline in popularity of their films, not necessarily quality, but popularity. I feel like nothing has reached that peak again. But even with 2 years later, with the remake of True Grit, while a movie that both of us enjoy, it feels like they never reached those heights again of 2007, and this is just kind of in that peak.
You had exactly right. You had Fargo, and then you had No Country, and you haven't got anything. So people do really like the True Grit. I think even for other critics or people who don't love westerns, even kind of still like really True Grit.
Sure,
especially because it's one of the few modern day westerns that we have.
Right. No less, maybe slightly even better than the original as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people would say that. You're right, though. I mean, I think that kind of got back a little bit, but other than that, there are other films that were much more quiet when they came out, for sure.
Exactly. Both critically nominated and whatnot,
Yeah.
and just general popularity. Burn After Reading is a scattered, paranoid comedy smack dab in the middle of the intelligence community in Washington, D.C. I would say the first stretch of the story is drastically different, giving us time with the CIA angle and matching the tension that would come with a story around that. But as more and more characters get introduced, the best way I can describe it is that the average IQ kept on dropping among the cast, or among these characters, at least, that we watch. And slowly the tone shifts from kind of a espionage thriller to comedy. Frances McDormand and Brad Pitt play the bottom of that IQ curve, and when they find a confidential CD containing state secrets, they attempt to ransom it for a juicy reward. I would say, though disjointed at first, the characters exist in a messy net of hookups and connections that is constantly shifting throughout the movie. And this is not a plot that I could predict at any point, which I think is good because...
Yeah.
While it's maybe not a great metric depending on what someone has seen and what they haven't, and, being able to predict a story, I feel like this one really had a lot of twists and turns in a good way. They weren't cheap in any kind of way. I wouldn't compare this film to too much, both within and without the Coen brothers' work, but the many characters and the sloppy crime absolutely is in the realm of Fargo, and I would say in a very good way. That, once again, that theme of small-time crime does not sacrifice in stakes just because it's small time. If anything, it has more stakes because this crime means everything to these crooks, backwater characters, idiots, it's all they have.
Yeah, and that's very Fargo-esque.
Yeah, exactly. I would say the comedic beats are a bit slower on this one, dulled by this mixed tone. I think my hot take with this one was it was like House of Cards filled with idiots, especially with the heavy DC vibes and whatnot. But the initial ransom call, I think, was my favorite moment in the film, and not to show my nerd card too much, but was the closest thing to a botched charisma check in D&D I could ever imagine on film.
I wish I knew what that meant.
Right. Just trying to convince them. Bad dice roll. Yeah, it is really funny, and it's between McDormand and Pitt. I do think the film shoots itself in the foot a bit with this split tone. I'm glad this was the polar opposite of a typical comedy, both for the time and now. I mean, this is kind of a very unique comedy, but in that also struggles to be hysterically funny, struggles to reach that point that I would say, oh, you gotta watch this. This is excellent comedy, despite there being a lot of depth here and also, again, very unique. What really worked for me here, though, was performances, and key to why the movie worked at all, I think. This might be one of my favorite John Malkovich performances, believe it or not.
All right. I don't want to put you on the spot and name them, but I feel like there's less than one.
You put me on the spot and I gotta name them. I don't know.
But
well, we talked about recently which one it's not.
Right. Get that on the reps.
Yeah. His intelligence as this CIA analyst matched with his rage. His rage is just so like knives. He's so good. It's so entertaining to watch him just freak out
just pop off.
Yeah. It's just so fantastic. Frances is stellar as always, and once again, like I said before, really had me reflecting on. Is there a role I don't enjoy her in? Here, she's able to embody that low-stakes crime that, frankly, she's on the other end of in Fargo, and that magic just kind of continues in this movie. And although brief, every J.K. Simmons scenes in this is golden. He's some I don't even know if he's given like official title, but he's some department head in the CIA, and the satire around CIA leadership is just is so good. It's so funny.
This really is my movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was like, damn, I hope he didn't watch Barton Fink,
No, just didn't watch either of them.
Yeah.
It's so funny, too, because I told you the other night I watched Dune and then I watched Moneyball. So I watched my Brad Pitt movie for the week.
Your daily Pitt. Yeah, but yeah, some really solid stuff, and I think the performances, in addition to being a nice cast, I think all the performances are really stand out, and that's where this comedy is saved. Where the actual filmmaking of the Coens, and especially when it comes to tone, is a little confused, a little bit of a stumble there.
Okay.
Folks, I would recommend this a bit higher if you're a comedy fan, especially if you're tired of the formulas done to death in the last 2 decades. Burn After Reading struggles a bit in dispersing its laughs equally during the runtime, but without a doubt is a unique experience that blends espionage thriller stakes with a lovable idiocy that really, really does keep you guessing. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give Burn After Reading 2008 a 69.
Okay, 69 doesn't crack the 70s.
Yeah. I think it was, if some other things fell into place, maybe, but
it was a little off.
It was really good otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, 69 is still a good movie. I'm excited to watch it now, and I think I'm going to take some time and watch this. This just falls into this pit of films that I never sat down and watched.
Yep.
And it's this crew, and it's this time frame as well. It's like The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yep.
Thank You for Not Smoking.
Oh,
type
sure.
vibe.
Yep.
And there's actually 2 more running through my head. But ones that just kind of disappear, and it's like, I'll get around to that.
Yeah,
stuff you always see on Netflix pop up. But the cast in this seems incredible.
Great callbacks. I think you are lasered in to where this kind of fits as well, even comedically.
Right, yeah. Because sometimes it hits or it
Yeah.
doesn't. Or maybe it's your sense of humor or it's just completely not as well.
Absolutely.
Because the Coens definitely have a sense of humor. It's just,
for sure.
which humor is it?
Right. Is it corny, hokey, or is it very sharp and smart?
Right. And they can dance that as well.
Yeah.
But okay, Burn After Reading with a 69%. Let's move on to the one I am most excited to hear your... Yeah, one, and again... I always wanted to approach this film and just never sat down and done it and watched it because I always feel like it's going to be more intense or more of a drama or more of a thinker. And I don't know, but really going through the Coen now this week and in the past since the podcast, it's like, man, these guys are like fun and there's always a comedy element to most of their films. So maybe this is just easier watch and more fun. But
breezy runtime, absolutely.
it's 2013's Inside Llewyn Davis, and this gives Oscar Isaac a big leading role.
Oh, yeah.
He was in some stuff beforehand, but this really introduces Oscar Isaac. It's 2 years before he's in the reboot of Star Wars, The Force Awakens, so this is really where it starts to happen for him. Inside Llewyn Davis, though, what is it about, Vin? And how'd you like it?
Well, I totally get what you mean as far as some of the intimidation with this film, because this is heavily critically praised.
Yes.
I mean, this is like, people think it's a perfect movie.
But when it came out, it wasn't like a No Country for Old Men.
No.
It didn't have this big cultural thing. It was like in the weeds.
Yep.
But everybody who really likes film or critics are just like, oh, Inside Llewyn Davis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I get that as just in general as kind of an intimidating factor sometimes. Like, do I really want to turn on my brain when I watch this?
Right. Exactly right.
I'm happily here to say that in kind of 2 directions, it maybe don't believe the hype on that. I feel like if anything, it kind of shot my watching in the foot, expecting so much more. And in that, once again, just kind of is it's a very Coen Brothers comedy that maybe blends in more of kind of a depressive seriousness tone to it, but still kind of about these same jokes that they've always made.
And that's what like putting it on the site, I'm getting that from it. And I think another reason why when I've seen clips or whatever, maybe a small trailer, it's also, with their coloring, it seems very dark and almost depressing film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it is meant to be a depressing film, but I feel like in that it's not satire. It's
Coen Brothers.
Yeah, exactly. It's a depressing comedy. So this is the only film that I've only partly seen, and in 2013, that really does mark a year that I got serious about watching films, and this was kind of always floating around on a flash drive I had. And on your notes of the look of the film, I would say something about the color palette and the feel of what was on screen always had me saying, like, yeah, I'll watch that someday.
Yes.
So like it was visually interesting enough where I was just like, I'll get around to it. So today's the day. I probably started and stopped it a dozen times as well. So maybe that's not that's sabotaged my watching. A large part of my fascination belongs to cinematographer Bruno De Bono, who continued to work with the Coens on Buster Scruggs and Macbeth, and he gets the Oscar nom for this as well. I feel the lonely indifference that this film tries to capture is all in the cold tinge of every scene. In that way, I was expecting so much more of a depressive story, so much more of a drama than what it is, where in actuality it shares the same comedic beats and quirky characters that pepper any of these films. So that's where I want to almost say don't believe the hype. Just kind of watch it with the expectation of a Coen Brothers film.
Okay.
So, Inside Llewyn Davis takes place during a bitter winter in 1961 New York, giving us a struggling look at the folk scene of Greenwich Village. Oscar Isaac plays our couch surfing guitarist that is just a destined loser. From losing friends' pets to bad record deals, he has no business sense, and worst of all, knocking up his friend's girl. It's just, he is a loser. We're watching not a downward spiral, but kind of a stumbling adventure. The film, or rather story, doesn't have a plot around the most interesting time of his life, and something that I've always referred to as what makes a good screenplay. Is this the single most important moment that we need to be looking at this character? And rather, instead, the runtime is about kind of languishing in a losing streak and a semi-serious comedy for a literal starving artist. Once again, my initial thoughts here, as they were with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, was kind of expecting more of a dive into the actual 1960s folk scene in New York. But once again, is more of a stylistic backdrop than anything, with a small shout out to Bob Dylan at the end.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of music in this one, much more than Oh Brother, Where Art Thou. It doesn't serve more than its story. It doesn't serve a historical or kind of a informative piece in that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just more for feeling and vibe.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's
and the setting. The setting itself is attached to this music, so that's why we have it infused. The tone of the story is kind of a misfit comedy, with Oscar striking a balance between pathetic and, honestly speaking, the most normal among a usual Coen cast of wild cards and insane people. So he's in this kind of lonely loser vibe, and it's not their typical film either. I think this echoes some of Big Lebowski, only much sadder and much more serious. But the type of comedic beats are around Oscar Isaac's character either being the most normal or the most weird. And that, to my memory, and we covered it on the podcast as well, is what Big Lebowski felt like as far as kind of a comedic structure there.
Right, okay.
Ultimately, I like this film a little bit more, which I know might be controversial to say, but honestly, both of these films are regarded much, much higher than where they rank for me personally. This and Big Lebowski, critical darlings,
They are.
Sure.
Honestly, I forgot about Big Lebowski,
Yeah.
which we covered also on episode 30.
Oh, okay.
If people want to go back and check out that. In fact, it's the episode where we did Everything Everywhere All at Once as well.
Oh, wow, look at that.
But you're totally right about that stretch now. When that Fargo, Big Lebowski, and then ending it with No Country, they may never, what a stretch.
Sure.
Like, what a 10-year stretch they had.
Yep, absolutely.
With things in between also. I'm finding that I might not be the biggest Coen Brothers fan.
Okay, fair.
I think I like them, but to the praise that so many people have, the culture that they have, I don't think I'm quite on board. And I think that's where you are, particularly maybe on this, but the Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
And Brother even.
Yeah, true. Well, I would actually have to go back and listen to the review on Big Lebowski. I do remember being a little bit more harsh on it than maybe even it
But I think
deserved.
rightfully so, because when I go back and watch it, that's kind of where I am.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's a product of watching it in the 2020s.
Or overhype.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you gave Big Lebowski?
I think high 60s. I'm hoping 69. Because
You gave it a 69 in the Burn After Reading score.
Excellent. Well, I actually kind of like that pairing. Both in ways. I do think that is a little harsh, if I'm being honest, on Big Lebowski. Something that is revered as one of the best comedies of all time.
I don't think it's that harsh.
Okay. I like, you're on my side, Tom. If I don't got you, I ain't got nobody. I can't turn on these mics myself.
You giving Layer Cake a 69, we can have a conversation on that. We'll wait till the mics are off.
Right.
But there is a like a Coen brothers constant movement. You know what I mean? And there's a hype, and they are so critically praised.
Right.
You know, like big time.
Yeah.
And that's where this Llewyn Davis comes up too, where it's almost intimidating. It's just like, I'll watch it at some point when I'm ready.
But if anything, and I think, as we kind of both have come to, these are simpler films than you expect. I think
Yes,
the
they're easier.
critical praise is intimidating, but actually watching the films, they're breezy, they're light, and you're not putting a ring on it. It's under 2 hours.
Right. That and sometimes just the story itself is very simple.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you look at Fargo and The Big Lebowski. Yeah, it's funny. I'm kind of right there with you. I even think that your Fargo score, like I would not rate it that high, me personally.
Really?
And I think you are with the masses on that.
Yeah, but definitely a bias showing with Roger Deakins. I mean, I think that's one of the best shot films ever.
You adored that, yeah.
Yeah. It's always that parking lot with snow.
Yeah.
I'd frame it. So good.
But I don't know. That's kind of what I'm finding out about the Coen brothers, doing more research, and we have covered a few of their films already.
Sure.
It's interesting. It's interesting, but with Inside Llewyn Davis, because it is praise, but it's not the praise of a Big Lebowski.
Right. And again, I think if anything, avoid maybe looking at some of that for folks at home, because I feel like I was expecting a lot more than, and not that this was a bad movie whatsoever.
Right.
I feel like sometimes when something is really good, I have to kind of focus on why it's not better in my review.
Sure. Yeah.
But also that comes with maybe just like put expectations aside and like we always say, watch the movie.
Yeah.
Just watch the movie on its own, context aside even. The other side of the coin of where this film is excellent and gets a lot of praise and worth the praise is the musical performances in the film, which are not only demanding but emotionally resonant, and the most that we're getting on the serious side of this. So much time with Oscar Isaac's performance, we're kind of waiting for the next quirky character to be introduced. Let me tell you, I think the real depressive side of what this story is about, the loner story, kind of the folk wanderer that has become a icon of this early 60s era and early 60s scene. It's in Oscar Isaac's music performance. You quite literally see him pouring out his soul in a lot of ways. It's honestly the most shocking aspect of this is Isaac doesn't get Oscar recognition for this. Not only is this showing a amazing singing performance, but a key piece falls on his shoulders. I would say the music in the film has to highlight the differences and the very subtle differences of 1960s folk stylings. And folks, that's not really easy because it all sounds exactly the same, showing us good and bad music is part of a lot of the comedic setup here of what is good folk music, of why Oscar Isaac thinks he's too good for certain things. But in that requires a lot from our lead, in the sense to show us the good music. Show us, wow, this is why it's kind of a tragedy that he's not being found or he's not being discovered. So I think a lot of credit goes towards this performance. I mean, I didn't look up what was in the running for 2013 or 2014, but really shocked he did not get the nom. This is a total snub scenario because, again, what is required from him musically, and then the responsibility of what that means in the plot, in the screenplay, on his shoulders, I think it wouldn't work without a solid music performance.
Yeah, it was nominated for 2 Oscars, one in cinematography and one in achievement in sound mixing. Nominees didn't win.
Sure. I guess sound mixing makes sense, but it's one of those technical.
Mixing,
yeah, right. It's not the juicy, it's not the hot awards.
That's good to hear that really holds up in the film, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me say this much: like I was maybe kind of interested in this for Adam Driver's inclusion. If Oscar Isaacs is like a like a pet actor that you like following, or whether
we
it's
both like
Star
him.
Wars,
We're both Oscar Isaac fans.
In April when we do the Alex Garland, we'll cover him in Ex Machina. He's great in that.
Oh yeah, he's great.
But yeah, when it comes down to that, I think like this is such a great performance from Oscar Isaac, and if you haven't seen this before and you are an Oscar Isaac fan, you have just such a wonderful opportunity to watch him absolutely kill it on screen. So
Excellent.
I would say this is really solid, though. Maybe a bit of a snoozer for some, but again, it's intentionally that. It's intentionally a depressive type of thing. If you enjoy maybe like a Sunshine of the Eternal Spotless Mind. Always mess that one up. If you like slightly depressive comedies, I think this right in that wheelhouse. Shout out to John Goodman and Adam Driver's side characters. I would say that is some top tier Coen Brothers side wild cards.
Side bits, yeah.
Yeah, and if anything, I feel like this John Goodman performance wins of the John Goodman performances this week.
Yeah, we should say John Goodman is totally the Coen Brothers Quentin Tarantino, or Tarantino Sam Jackson.
Yes, that's a great description.
I didn't realize how heavy John Goodman was
Right.
for the Coen Brothers films.
Absolutely. And never lead? Spitballing that, but I don't think he's in the lead.
I don't think he's ever the lead.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Yeah. But really solid film. Again, I would say this one more than most. If what we've been talking about, if the styling, the setting, or most importantly, the music focus sounds good to you, jump into this one. We're going to go ahead and give Inside Llewyn Davis, 2013, a 75 on the dot.
Wow, 75, man.
Yeah, very good.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And like I said, I still have this. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
When I check it out. But especially for an early Oscar performer.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
Because, one, I really like him. Like, he's one of the few. He's probably like 40 now. I don't even know. Or like,
right,
I
yeah.
think he might be even like 45. He's not like this young guy.
You're right. A guy that definitely is acting much younger,
Right.
He's paired up practically with teens with the Star Wars movies.
Right.
So,
but he plays it off well. I just think he's a very good, I'll say it now, he's a very good under 50s actor, I guess. But 75%, great score. I know it's just 2013 film, and it's around. You can find it. Mm-hmm. I was thinking, would a good doubleheader with this be Crazy Heart with Jeff Bridges?
Ooh, I don't think I've actually ever seen Crazy Heart, but I like it for the guitar focus, singer-songwriter, down and out. Yeah, absolutely.
Just trying to get a hit.
I think that's good.
Okay, so that is that's Inside Llewyn Davis with a 75%. Before we move on to our newly released film, folks, we just want to remind you all that Vin and I are going off the value for value model. So the daily ratings, we're not going to stick advertising in your face, whether it be useless ad reads on the podcast. We're not going to take commercial breaks. We're not going to have pop-up ads or just banner ads and on this site that's just going to bog it down and make it look terrible. We're also not going to do paywalls or tier structures. We're not going to have subscriptions. The whole point is that Vin and I produce all of this content. We do the podcast once a week. We have the companion piece, which is the website, thedailyratings.com, to go along with everything. It's all there. It's all out there. But are you finding it valuable? Is that value in your pocket? We ask you, can you give us value back in our pocket? So it's through monetary support and through donations. So you go to thedailyratings.com, you head to the donations tab, and any amount that you want, any amount of value that you're getting, you send our way. Everyone's on their own budgets, and everyone's their own money and their own finances, or their own thing. Mm-hmm. $5 this week may be a lot of money to you. $500 may not be much money at all to you. Mm-hmm. Everybody's on their own thing. So you can make whatever donation amount you want. We do have some fun set donations. Like we have, you can buy Vin a movie ticket. You can become a Godfather. Join the Gump Club. Some fun set stuff. But the point is, it's the value for value button there as well. You just click that, and it's any amount of value that you want. You send it in our way. When you do donate, you can send in a donation note. You can do it through a PayPal box that you can click, or you can email us at tom.vin@thedailyratings. You just email us a donation note, and that could be your questions, comments, critiques on the podcast or the website. And literally, it could be an Ask Us Anything. It's whatever you feel like you need to address with us. You go ahead and send that in, because right now, this is the producer segment. This is when we're going to read it. And whatever you write, we're going to read.
Whatever you let's focus on that. You got me thinking with calling back to some old scores. I mean, maybe if, let's say, you're a hater of my scores, if you're a hater of maybe coming off of some of the shorts that we've posted on different social medias, understand, rarely do you get the opportunity to air out your hate mail on the product itself. So, I mean, listen, you may not want to support us monetarily, but you got a hell of an opportunity to voice your opinion and have us react to it. So
it really is whatever you want. Send in your donation note. We'll read it here in the producer segment. We see the that the podcast is growing more and more, which is great to see. Anytime you can just get us in the conversation, that's where we want to be. So you hear people talking about or bitching about Rotten Tomatoes. You just hear people talking about other people's movie rating podcasts. Just get us in there. If you're enjoying it, that's another way to produce as well. This is a different way of doing podcasting, the V for V, the value for value model, because you're so used to listening to advertising on podcasts. The more you listen to shows that do this model, the more you start to hate the other ones.
Oh, sure.
I was just thinking I was listening to a podcast, and I like the hosts, I like the show, but they were going on about we have such great relationships with our advertisers, and we appreciate them so much.
Yeah.
And it's I want to have a good relationship with the people who listen to this podcast.
With all of you, absolutely.
It's so disgusting. They're so removed from the core. It's just do you understand that you're just using us to make money and to sell us pitch ads in our face for your money?
Yeah,
And it's just, we have such a good relationship. We appreciate our advertisers so much. It's screw the advertisers. If you are listening, if you're enjoying it, remember this. Vin and I, it's not that much money. It is a lot of work to produce this every week.
Yep.
Just for the fact if it's 5 films, Vin, it's paragraphs per film, and all the back end work, betting them on the site. It takes a lot of our time each week. So we are showing value, and again, we just ask, are you getting anything out of it? It's a value in your pocket. It's thedailyratings.com, and head to the donations tab. We thank you all so much. We appreciate you. We don't appreciate the advertising. We appreciate you. I just wish more people had that kind of mindset.
Great ad read, Tom.
Oh, thank you. Okay, Vince, so do we want to make the special announcement now, or we'll save it for the end?
Yeah, we can do it now.
Okay, so all right. Not about it.
So, schedule-wise, March is both busy and not busy. March 15th, though, is a little bit of a blank spot, and I think I'm worried about some things getting moved around as well. But we are going to be tackling something very big, something that, even if it's not on your radar, it's big for Tom and I to kind of make our bones as reviewers. Obviously, we always reference must-watches. Always, in the course of the podcast, there's been nothing over a 90.
Literally.
Not a single film. We've gotten very close. Sweet Smell Success, Fargo, of course. But with this Coen Brothers episode, we are inspired by it. So we are going to be covering No Country for Old Men in a very different styling. I don't know. What do you want to give some thoughts to that?
Exactly. So it is a new special that we never have done before. We haven't even come up with a name yet. We'll do that in 2 weeks. We'll finalize something. But whether it's a daily deep dive or a daily must-watch special, the whole point is we are spending an entire episode on one film from the must-watches. So it might be an 85 and above or something like that, but we're tackling a 91% film, which is No Country for Old Men. It will be the entire podcast, and there will be spoilers.
Yes.
And Vin and I have some fun categories that we'll go through, some favorite scenes, things like that. It's a full-on look, a deep dive into a single film, which we've never done before. We have our essential films. We kind of have our series films, like we do all the old Star Trek.
Sure.
We've done all the Girl with the Dragon Tattoos.
This kind of series spotlight,
exactly.
we can call it.
Whole different kind of special, and we're introducing it now with the Coen brothers, and it'll be No Country for Old Men, just that must-watch special, and we're very excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely, and even to the course of us kind of announcing this ahead of time, this of course will be in the newsletter as well. The thought of doing spoilers comes from the fact that this is a must-watch and almost doesn't need the review. That's kind of our position that we're coming from, that the review is more so about dissecting the film. It should almost be, at least from our position, a given that you should watch it. So, like we kind of even prepped for Scarface when I said it was going to be the only one good coming from De Palma. Hopefully this is something that you can fit into the next 2 weeks and watch a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, I think it was during the Tom Daly special. I might have even mentioned, hey, we have some new specials or something like that some of you might be excited for, especially from what we heard, because we have gotten feedback before where people have asked us to go longer on.
Or spoilers. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Exactly. So this is our chance to do that as well. It's understood it's a great film.
Yep.
It's been on the website now since since the website launched. So it's all known. So it's just going to be fun as movie fans or somebody who hasn't approached the film yet. Still might be fun to listen to it. It's a whole different kind of show. It's a new special we're introducing, so that's 2 weeks from now. Because don't forget, next week is kind of the episode we've been so excited for this entire year so far, which is Dune Part 2, which is going to be huge. But in the spirit of the Coen brothers with this new film that just came out, it's fun that we're going to be launching this.
And speaking honestly, I love any time that we can kind of create almost like a book club aspect where folks at home, you're watching along with us. So I really do enjoy that, because whether it's hearing feedback from all of you, or even just kind of knowing that there's appreciation going on for these films, or maybe even bashing of these films.
Right.
I love that.
And by the way, this is why we don't have Patreon. This is what people would be like, hey, if you give us $50 a month, this is special access.
Sure.
It's none of that. It's going to be out in 2 weeks.
Right.
Everyone come and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. So we'll keep going here. This is our now release. It's in theaters now. This is only Ethan Coen, not Joel Coen directing. This is called Drive Away Dolls. Done some research on this. But why don't you set up Drive Away Dolls? This is the shortest film. It's under an hour and a half. Set it up a bit, and let's talk about how'd you like it.
Well, I was kind of excited for this one. It's written by Ethan Coen and his longtime collaborator, Trissa Cook, who has been the editor on countless of their films, and no less Ethan's wife. The drop of Joel Coen here from the project is minimal, however, with this movie being right on brand for their style, and if anything, a callback to their earlier work with its hokey, corny, comedic beats. Margaret Qualley is the co-lead here, and is an actress I've enjoyed seeing kind of peppered into things. A pretty large role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a recent bit part in Poor Things, and even the video game front with Kojima's Death Stranding. By the way, super hyped for the sequel. I know it's probably going to be a little bit of garbage, but love Kojima. She's sporting a heavy Texas accent here. Heavy Texas accent. So this is going to be a real coin toss. I wrote a lot about this. I deleted it all because I really do think it's just a coin toss of if it's going to work or not. I would lean toward...
Yeah, okay, sorry.
No.
That's the big question.
I would lean towards no, only because it's one of many decisions that make me just kind of scratch my head with this film.
Okay.
It's just... It's one of many that I'm just like, why?
Okay. There's two questions I need to be asked.
Sure.
Okay, so are you saying that does she need a heavy Texas accent, or are you saying she's doing a really bad heavy Texas accent?
It's on the execution, not necessarily why they wanted this Texas character.
Gotcha.
Because if anything, that kind of makes sense a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, it's more so the pull off on this. Geraldine Viswanathan is the other half of that, and against my initial thoughts, was pretty great. She comes from more of a teen crowd, so I didn't really have experience with her. This includes 2018's Blockers, which shares the screen with another teen star we covered 2 weeks ago, Katherine Newton. Here, she kind of steals the show, though, being the emotional center of a very silly comedy, very raunchy comedy, and the focus of a plot for this kind of... lesbian discovery adventure. That's really the elevator pitch of Drive Away Dolls. Kind of a sexual awakening journey to it, with the usual Coen brothers wacky characters and crime spin, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's the best, shortest elevator pitch you could give it, but sums it up pretty well.
Sure. Well, the movie's a doozy, so that works enough for you. Maybe give it a watch. I am gonna kind of bash a little bit here, though. Drive Away Dolls opens up with Pedro Pascal nervously hiding a mysterious briefcase before he is brutally murdered for an unknown reason. Behind the scenes, this briefcase is given a dead drop in the back of a rental car, and when our girls get that car mixed up, they are chased by criminal lackeys with a mysterious high-stakes client after the goods. The plot around the chase, though, is kind of a side element, mostly a side element, I would say, as our two leads embark on a personal journey as well, for their own reasons, mostly to escape scorned lovers. Margaret plays the free spirit Jamie, who is pretty much going wherever the wind blows her and where she can find others to hook up with. This plays into her character flirting the line with being a bad person, and honestly, I think that's where it created some good depth. That's where I think it's in the execution. My critique, it's not in the writing. I actually like the character writing quite a bit with her.
Okay.
Geraldine plays the uptight Marion, and while she may be out of the closet, is far more reserved compared to her loose counterpart. Comedically, these two echo an age-old comedy duo styling where one is wild and the other is the straight man, or should I say the straight woman, or should I say nothing at all? I think the comedy is pretty solid on this one. Less Coen Brothers in its pacing, believe it or not. This is watching this film and then reflecting on all 5 films in the notes. I was like, damn, this is the one that feels the least like Coen Brothers, with all this building of talking about Coen Brothers and the trademarks and whatnot.
It's so true. But maybe not surprising. Joel's not, part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Trisha writing, that's an entirely new voice, a female voice as well. So,
and it should say, maybe it's in your notes too. You have it later, but these two basically wrote this whole thing in the late 90s.
Oh no! Actually, could you give some thoughts to that?
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, these two they were a couple, and they got married and stuff.
Yeah.
Or been husband and wife for a while. But they, like I said, they basically wrote this, and it had the title of Drive Away Dykes was the name, and also just to allude towards maybe the more raunchiness of it.
Yeah.
But basically it was complete, but I don't know how many different editions they went through as far as rewrites and things. But my understanding is pretty much the story was done. It was there in the can, but they just did, other projects. And finally this worked out where it was time to do this. Mm-hmm. I don't know how big of a release it's getting. It's in theaters. It's not doing well at all. I don't. It wasn't even in the top 5 as far as...
and critics haven't been liking it as well for this raunchy spin, for sure.
Right. So it's definitely a different type of Coen film, and maybe that's why it's coming out now, or kind of as Joel's doing his own thing and worked with Apple. But this has definitely been something that they've been wanting to do for literally 2 decades or more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think when researching Trisha, I think she had one other project that I didn't recognize, but...
Writing-wise?
Writing, and I believe... Some other production. Maybe it was just
probably
her
film
usual
editing.
editing.
Yeah.
I would say instead of this... I mean, it's definitely Coen Brothers in its pacing, especially for the chasing lackeys, the crime element into it, and the scrambling kind of slippery slope of everything. At the actual comedic beats, not so much. Instead, this reminds me more of an Edgar Wright comedy, especially Scott Pilgrim. And I think that really is high praise if you know my taste here. This is an alt-teen spin, and it sets up scenes for our characters to kind of be awkward outliers, but lovable in their razor-sharp wit and comebacks. I think it speaks to the strength of the writing here, that the first thought and a repeat thought I had constantly in watching this film is that this is really destined to be a cult classic, much like how Scott Pilgrim is a cult classic.
Interesting. You think this will grow on people?
I think so. Absolutely.
Okay.
Put this on Netflix, it's going to do much, much better. And of course, the usual... I mean, we actually haven't pointed it out in a while, but the divide between critic and audience scores. So.
I'll ask that now, too, because, when it has an hour and 24-minute runtime.
Right.
Like very, very short.
Yeah.
One thing coming out of it, did you feel it was worth the price of a ticket? Or is this a film that's worth? Usually, I'm Mr. Go see it in a great theater.
Sure.
This is getting. I'm feeling like you might be able to wait for this one.
I think so. I would definitely come at that as well, because we'll get into it in just a second. But it is very raunchy. There's a lot of sex scenes in this one. But unlike Poor Things or something like that we've covered recently, or Saltburn, the raunchiness is all for comedy, and I feel like if anything. The theater experience was people kind of holding back what they would laugh at normally. So maybe like a private watching would be the way to go to avoid awkwardness and things like that.
Well, and it's a $20 for a short film.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like a $20 ticket.
It's an interesting line, of cost analysis with runtime versus the cost of the ticket. I mean, sure hope Dune is going to pay dividends. Also, I've heard people with Dune 2 saying that it's not long enough, which I feel is a little ridiculous.
Well, that's typically not us.
Yeah.
I think I'm a bit more okay with longer runtimes maybe than you.
I think so.
Although we're kind of both on this... Slash it.
That
is very
blood
has become us.
Yep.
But like, I was so pro Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And if the movies, I'm like, hey, sit down. The Irishman. Now I'm holding the flag for that one, and we'll continue.
It's never gonna stop coming up. It's never gonna stop coming up.
I mean, I'm Mr. Lord of the Rings. Why don't you just watch the extended edition?
Right, and all 3 in a row then.
It'll be funny with 2 next week. Total polar opposites.
Yeah,
This being an hour and 24.
Sure.
But that's good to hear that maybe it does. Maybe this will have life on Netflix.
I think so. In addition to some very sharp comedy writing, I think my praise and honestly my hope of what I wanted to be possibly something ranking in the 70s was in that comedy writing, because I thought it was very funny and I thought the performances were very funny. It's just, it pains me to say it, but the filmmaking was a mess. I feel like something was significantly lost on having Joel in the picture.
Joel was lost.
Joel, get over here.
Wow.
I don't know if Trisha Cook is the Yoko Ono of the Beatles, but yeah, there's someone else about it, and that's where I kind of come to some of the criticism, folks. The heads up I have to give with this one is that it is very, very dirty, funny, but very, very dirty, with copious amounts of sex scenes and a raunchy tone, feeling, frankly, right out of the early 2000s. And I mean, like, early 2000s, like kind of American Pie, almost, in ways.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. We didn't cover it on the podcast, but last year's Comedy Bottoms shows a rise in these kind of queer comedies, and a handful of others, certainly. On top of that, there is a trend of them all leaning a little bit raunchier, and that is 100% the case here, too. I would say where it maybe even gets a step further, it's I'll say this much, it's very much about technique. So, I think a private watch might be the way to go, because there was definitely a atmosphere to the film and in the theater that was not enjoyable. Now all of this around my praise of performances, comedy, it seems pretty good, but honestly, I wrestled a lot with this review in if the good outweighs the very bad. But I think on that bad side, Ethan's filmmaking just might sink this whole movie for audiences, and might have sinked the whole movie for me.
Wow.
It's a shame.
Do you think it's half his filmmaking, then also her poor accent?
No,
because you started with you opened with the bad accent.
I did just because it's so in your face. Okay. It's gonna be the first thing everyone notices, even just watching the trailer. But no, the real critique has nothing to do, frankly, with the sex, nothing to do with the raunchy or anything. It's all to do with these weird filmmaking quirks that Ethan has infused into this. The best elevator pitch, I already gave an elevator pitch for this, but I'll give another elevator pitch. It feels like the throwback style that this is gunning for was almost taken too literally. It's like they're trying to do an old pulp B movie, not unlike a lot of their stuff, not unlike a lot of directors are successful at. Recently, Alexander Payne, Tarantino in perpetuity. He never stops. But instead, this actually dips into a little bit of the bad side of what a real B movie feels like.
Wow.
Wow. 2 main points. I really mean big points, because these it synced almost everything for me. Scene transitions are very cringy, often paired with goofball sound effects. I'm talking like boings and springs, like boing, like what? I wish I honestly said that out loud in the theater, just to let's get on the same page, right, folks. What? That alone, the first note, I was like, did this just shit the bed? This ruined
so
it.
Even you weren't being like, oh, that was artistically stylistic
or cute, or no, it was like
out of left
field.
Left field.
So such a cornball joke. I feel like it would really no audience is going to be about that.
Okay,
maybe like a weirdo would be like, right. and I'm a weirdo, but and then the second is another filmmaking quirk, being these heavy psychedelic segments using the repeat track from Funkadelic Maggot Brain. Listen, I enjoy that track. I like Funkadelic. That's a dynamite album. Yeah. But these scenes eventually get explained, but while they keep popping up, it's like, what's going on? It's not only old effects, like how they would make psychedelic sequences a la Willy Wonka.
I was going
or,
to say
you know,
Willy Wonka, yeah.
exactly. Like a psychedelic freak-out type of scene. There's a good, like, 3 of them, and it's just, like, so unexplained while you're watching them. We eventually get there, but on the scenes themselves, just a total distraction in a movie that's barely an hour 30. It's like, what is going? Get this rolling. What I know,
What? The knives are out, folks.
I'm sorry. I mean, I don't think anyone watching this, especially maybe a more LGBTQ crowd going for this, as the demographic naturally. I think this movie is going to totally alienate people because it's for, like, old timers. Who wants these psychedelic sequences? Who wants these, like, Leave It to Beaver transitions with boing, like, it's unreal. It was unreal. And the movie destroyed itself because of these choices.
Wow. And unrecognizable to the Coen.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's where I'm really torn, because in ways it was absolutely what we've been talking about for the last 4 films. In other ways, it was like, where's Joel? You know? As anyone that has watched one of their films can tell you, is that this hokey cornball, you know, the campiness, if you will, comes from how they make characters and whatnot, and that is the brand. So don't get me wrong, I feel like in ways it worked, but in other ways, man, it really is just a gut reaction that the film just kind of musters from every viewer. It's too much. It's too much. Did I go on too long for that?
No, we're good.
He's leaning back in his chair. He doesn't know if I'm going to continue to tear into it. Overall, folks, I mean, really, when it comes down to this one, the best thing about this film is the Coen brothers' feel to the script, the crime spin, and the unique performances here. But equally, the worst thing about this is that same Coen quirkiness and oddball filmmaking that just comes off so corny here that I think it will just alienate any audience not in on the joke. We're going to go ahead and give Drive Away Dolls a 53.
53%.
Tough one.
Yeah, not the best movie. Not the best movie.
Wanted it to be better. In ways is better. In a lot of ways is better. But in a lot of ways, it's also much, much worse.
Well, I'll say, which brother would you prefer? An exact 30% difference in score. The answer is Joel Coen.
Yeah.
You can listen to the tragedy of Macbeth. By the way, that was episode 14.
But also,
17.
What a different movie. I don't know. You're talking about a different movie.
Episode 17 of the podcast. If you want to listen to what just Joel singly was able to do. Also on that was the card counter with Oscar Isaac, and then,
good callback.
And Pig with
Nick Cage.
Nick Cage.
Card counter wasn't that good though. Pig was great.
No, Pig was Card counter was talking to Houdini big time.
Yeah, that was one that got the wool was pulled over my eyes for Martin Scorsese getting a producer credit.
Yeah,
on
executive
that.
producer. Yeah. Episode 17 again, an earlier episode. You know, I don't know. I might not have my microphone shoes on quite yet. But anyway, okay. So Drive Away Dolls for 53%. Wow, Vin. Interesting.
Tough one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I still don't know in ways, but I think that's where the 50s, especially, you know, ranging from 45 to 55, can be a lot of things. Can represent a lot of feelings with films, and I feel like this one is a little bit of a lost opportunity, a little bit of a shot in the foot.
So what's going to be funny is pairing this with another film coming up. So obviously in 2 weeks we're going to do our new special. The really one new film that's coming out this weekend. I don't know if it was on your list or not, but we should probably watch it the week after. But it's Love Lies Bleeding with our girl Kristen Stewart.
Yes,
and also what's his face, the actor who I absolutely love. Ed Harris is also in it.
Oh yeah, he looks crazy.
He looks crazy in it. But this again is like a lesbian thriller kind of romance film.
Honestly, that movie I'm very much looking forward to.
I think it's going to hit.
I'm hoping it's going to be really dark when it comes to its thriller aspects. You know, the type of film that I like when it's like I want to feel terrible.
Yeah, because Drive Away Dolls there's thriller thrown into the genre for Drive Away Dolls. The studio throws it in.
So comedy. I would.
Yeah.
totally remove that from its genre.
So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. It'd be interesting kind of just to pair those up.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully better.
Hopefully better. But 53% for Drive Away Dolls. Looking at this Coen week, Vin, do you have any other finishing notes? Anything the last thing touch on? Or
credits? Folks, write in if you got a favorite Coen Brothers film. Obviously, we haven't covered some big ones here.
Yeah, we've got more to cover.
Previous on the podcast, and most importantly, if you are a Coen Brothers film, we'd love to hear maybe some feedback from you on why, for any number of reasons, why No Country for Old Men hits for you, why it doesn't, and why maybe you think it should be in a must-watch or shouldn't it.
Yeah,
so.
Excellent, Vin. Okay, well, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for watching all these films, Vin. Thanks for stopping by tonight. Just a reminder, folks. So like we announced, 2 weeks from now, we have our brand new special that we're going to be having out, the Daily Ratings Must Watch special, where we are covering No Country for Old Men, the deep dive. And also, next week is Dune Part 2. One of the most anticipated films of the past year and a half, basically, since it was supposed to come out in November. But Dune Part 2, so it's leaving Netflix, I think. It might have been leaving Netflix on the 28th, actually. But,
HBO Max took it back.
Oh, is that right?
I think so.
Well, watch it on Max. Get ready. Watch Dune Part 1 in preparation for it. We're definitely excited for Part 2 next week. But for right now, we're going to run down these films one more time. We have Raising Arizona with a 73%, Oh Brother Where Art Thou with a 61%, Burn After Reading with a 69%, Inside Llewyn Davis with a 75%, and finally, Drive Away Dolls with a 53%. Folks, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will be seeing you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or get the word out and tell a friend about us. And just a reminder, the Daily Ratings is completely producer supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in any of the things that we're doing here on the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com, and while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vin has rated for us. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.